Welcome to the 1.7 podcast, the place where creatives get to speak the truth about ourselves, our art, and our place in the world. Yo, what's up? Hey, so thankful that you guys took the time to come and join us here and just chat with us. This is our first podcast, and we want to make it great for you. It's a podcast where we just want to, in essence, talk about the side of the creative business and the industry that don't really get talked about. You know, usually I go on YouTube and it's usually about gear and camera reviews and different things. But there's another side. There's almost the soul, if I would use that word. It's almost the soul of the creative that we want to look at here and we want to talk about. So my name is Ryan Daniel, and I'm originally from the Caribbean. I'm from the Twin Island nation of Trinidad and Tobago. If you don't know where Trinidad and Tobago is, it's like 6 miles east of Venezuela. And we gave the world calypso and limbo. Yeah. No, I don't know if you guys have seen what limbo is, but Google that, man. We brought that to the world. So I've been living in Minnesota for the past 20 years. My wife and I started this media company about 12, 15 years ago. And my degree is actually in broadcast journalism. And our company is more of an SNC media group, right? So there is Zandali Weddings, and there is Zandali Corporate. And then there's another brand that we're in the process of launching called KPR12. So we decided to do this blog, this podcast, because we wanted to address issues and just talk with other creatives about things that really impact their work that don't usually get covered. So the purpose of this particular podcast, right, the title is called 3 Ways That Resentment Can Ruin Your Work. So let's talk about resentment a little bit. See, we've all been there as creatives, right? We as creatives, we are a specific kind of people. We're a specific kind of humans. And there's a certain level of purity that we have to bring to our art form, and a certain level of transparency that we bring to our art form, certain level of sincerity. And because of that, we also bring a certain level of vulnerability to our art form. And it's very easy to be taken advantage of, whether intentionally or unintentionally. So if we're going to talk about resentment, I think in my story, in my journey, it's simple. It wasn't that my clients were being unfair. It was simply the fact that I was doing too much work for too little money, right? And as creatives, if we understand that we don't have infinite amount of creative resource, we don't have infinite amounts of creative energy, right? So I share this with creatives all the time. If you're doing a certain type of gig over and over and over, and that's all you're doing, and you're not really creating, you're not changing it up at all. You're not doing anything different. It's only a matter of time before you become empty. And what happened to me was the gigs that I was doing, they weren't making me any money, really, right? There was a lot of intrinsic value in these gigs because I was learning so much, and I was really happy with how the work was turning out, and I was impacting lives, and I was getting filled that way, but I wasn't making a lot of money, and I was too young to know and to understand that because I wasn't moving forward financially, that sooner or later the numbers would begin to bear on me. And what happened is that there became a time where my work became stagnant, and I realized that it was because I was starting to harbor certain levels of resentment in my process in terms of what I was getting for jobs. And I know as creatives, people out there listening, we know, wedding photographers or wedding videographers, we know that a lot of times you go out there, you probably work for other companies, and you go out there and you do a job for $400, for $600. And in the beginning, you're happy to do it. You're more than happy to do it because you get to kind of cut your teeth on it, and you get to be a true purist, and you get to bring your art into the world. But after a year, and then 2 years, then 3 years, and then 4 years, and then finally you begin to say, I'm moving away from weddings now, right? Because you've exhausted your capacity. And for too many people, for a lot of people, the time that they've spent didn't really pay them back. You see what I'm saying? And because of that, it becomes resentful. And I think that, in essence, it sparks a lot of uncertainty in a lot of people, because people who become bitter and people who have resentment would share their bitterness and would share their resentment. So now young talent that is actually coming into the business, right, are being mentored by old and bitter photographers and bitter videographers that still harbor resentment because they didn't get what they deserved. And that's tough. That's tough. But I had to deal with mine resentment because I saw it affect my work, right? And one of the ways that it started to affect my work is that I lost the love for the work. You know what I'm saying? I actually lost the love for the work. And that's a big thing for a creative, right? Because if you lose your love for the work, then you're either making a lot of money or you're doing it out of punishment for yourself. Think about that. It's either you're doing it because you're making tons of money, right? And if you're making lots of money, then you won't be resentful, right? Okay. So the only other option is that it becomes a punishment, on your soul. And you can't create good art because of that. Another reason that resentment is really bad is that if, let's say you agree to do a job for like $100, and then you find out that the job is actually worth a little bit more, but you already agreed with it, right? Usually what would happen if you have resentment, what you're going to do is that you're going to not do the job the right way, right? You're not going to give it the time of day. You're not going to focus on it. You're going to cut corners. And I'm telling you this now, all of those things that's in your spirit, that's in your heart, that resentment that's making you treat this job like it's like not worth anything, it goes out into the universe, okay? And it brings fruit back into your process, into your life. And I'm telling you this, I've seen people delete footage. I've seen things go wrong just because the people had the wrong attitude at the job, right? They had the wrong attitude. They were resentful about something in the work. And because they were a part of the team, something went horribly wrong. So that's the second way resentment, in essence, messes with your work. And the last way, which I think is the biggest and most important thing, is that resentment takes you out of the business. You're done, right? You're done. That's it. You wanted to be a great photographer, and maybe in your early times you had a lot of potential. You wanted to be a great videographer, and maybe in your early times you had a lot of potential, but you never dealt with the resentment, right? So you're stuck in the perpetual loop of what are you worth and what are you getting? And that's a topic for a completely different podcast about what your worth is actually. Because a lot of you guys out there have been just gorging yourself on a bunch of nonsense ideology, right? About what value really is and how it's attached to your work. But that's something else. The point we want to land on today is if you find yourself in that space, that perpetual conflict of always not trying to get what you are worth, it's just a matter of time before you're completely out of it. Here's why. Even the greatest of us creatives, the market's not going to require your services forever. Let me say it again. Even the greatest of us, the most fortunate of us, the most blessed of us, the most favors of us, all creatives, that the market, the people are not going to always come to you as the hot thing forever, right? We all have a shelf life. We all have a shelf life. So if as a creative, somewhere in your prime, right? Maybe you're not new anymore, but maybe you're in the middle of your career, of your creative lifespan. If you allow bitterness and resentment, right, to be in that space, what you've done is that you've minimized your shelf life in the market. That's it. It's just a matter of time before it's over for you, Papi. As we close out this chat, we as creatives, as humans, or art, it thrives on sincerity, it thrives on humility, and it thrives on transparency, right? Everything that we're doing, when we purchase gear, right, and we're shooting, we're trying to bring into this world, right, a vision, right, of harmony, of balance, of line and a form to tell a specific story, right? And whatever you are gets mirrored through that lens, right? And I get it. Some creatives are exhausted, right? You've spent years just being exploited by just the industry. A lot of exploitation, right? Years just being beaten up, not getting what you're worth, not understanding your value. And there's no easy answer for those things. But all we can do is be responsible for how we respond to them. And today, my encouragement to you is just don't be resentful. Don't be bitter, because it's costing you a lot more than you actually know. And we all have a limited shelf life. Thank you for tuning in to the 1.7 podcast. We really do appreciate you taking your time out of your day to give us a listen. And we do hope that you really got something today out of the conversation. Be sure to follow us. We definitely want to be friends over at Instagram at Zandley Media. Until next time, keep creating. Right.